Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me here. I am so excited. We have hit 900 subscribers. And yes, I said we because it's not me, it's us. We are a family. We are a soul group. We're a light family here. You are all divine aspects of myself as I am a divine aspect of you. So if I am hitting 900, you're hitting 900 too, because this is our channel where we all come together and connect and commune. And so this is very exciting. And my day started off exciting because my first client today was an in-person session with someone who's been with me for many, many years, and definitely could say this has become my family. So, and she came with a congratulations balloon. So I want to share that with you guys. How exciting. So it feels like a long time in the making for the 900. I know that there are many of you out there that are cheering on my channel so that we can continue our work together and continue expanding our consciousness. And so I just want to give a shout out to Susan, who is the one that bought me the balloon and has been a champion of mine for many, many years and is doing her work and is hit her ascension timeline finally, which is so exciting to me and her, of course. So just a shout out. Hey, Susan, thank you so much. Keep going. You've been a huge catalyst in my life too, as the rest of this family has been also in so many different ways, regardless of whether we actually know each other in a personal way or we just come here to connect on this channel through this video, which is timeless and it's multidimensional. And so no matter when you're coming in, you've been with me forever. So that's kind of how I look at this, just to give you an idea. So this channel is really about us and it's not just about me. So as it grows, I'm so excited for what that means for all of us. So today, I wanted to talk about emotions. I have received a lot of questions lately concerning how to manage or govern our emotions when we're seeing things in the news or coming through our social media feeds, or you guys are seeing it on the TV. I don't watch TV. I also don't listen to the radio. So I just wanted to give some time to this because I feel like this is an important topic to help maybe offer some way, a tool, whatever you want to call it, for helping to shift your emotions if you're finding yourself caught in a particular something. And, again, taking everybody into consideration where everybody is, because I have a population base that stretches over into Europe, many countries over there. So I honor what they have been dealing with, what some of them are still going through, as well as here in the United States, here in New York, where it's been very challenging, and of course, what's happening in Canada right now. So I feel like this is really going to help those who maybe have loved ones that are dealing with what's taking place in Canada, or perhaps you've been somebody that's been supportive of that cause with the truckers or whatever's going on. And so what I wanted to do is offer you a way to help you bring yourself back into your consciousness when you go unconscious and get angry, frustrated, fearful, and have a hard time managing what you're feeling emotionally, because that can be extremely challenging. Okay, so the first thing is, when we're hearing something that we don't like, the first thing that happens is the mind takes over because the emotions have kicked in. And the emotional body is what's tied to everything in our reality. It's literally tapped into, plugged into everything in our reality. And the minute that the emotions engage, the mind comes into play. And the first part of the mind that comes into play is the ego. And the ego is the part of the mind that doesn't want to be forgotten, right? It's the, hey, I'm here, this is mine, it belongs to me, right? So it's that me, mine, my, I kind of centric thought process that we have when we have thoughts. And so when the ego kicks in and fear comes to the forefront, and our mind starts spinning the narrative, we immediately get caught up in that, and we can cycle right down into the rabbit hole if we're not careful. And so when we find ourselves doing that, the first thing that we need to do is, have an awareness that we are heading into something negative. We're judging something, right? And the minute that we have the awareness that we're judging something, we have then healed that something that we've judged, because we've actually acknowledged it through conscious thoughts. So the minute we acknowledge a judgment in a state of consciousness, conscious awareness, it can no longer be a negative. It can no longer have the impact that the judgment had, because we're now acknowledging that we had that judgment or we had that negative thought, and it kind of disengages or takes its negative power away, if you will. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to have an awareness that we're having a negative thought and we're running into fear, right? So the fear could sound like, oh my gosh, things are getting out of control. What's going to happen if things go downhill there? Is it going to happen here where I live, wherever that is? Is it going to be, is there going to be a trickle down effect? And is this going to then spread to a grander scale? And we could go right down a rabbit hole with that thinking. So the minute we start to find ourselves feeling that way, and we start to feel the emotions churning in our body, that would be the moment to come back into balance again. And so the first thing that I want to offer you is, in that moment of having all of those thoughts and having all of those emotions, which are now tied together, and when thoughts come together with emotions, it forms a stronghold belief, and that belief takes hold in the body and then starts to create an emotional fire, if you will. Okay. And it starts to come through the etheric field deeper into the body, which is how our thoughts can actually make us sick. If you ever had a thought that made you want to throw up or something like that, it's because it came in so fast that it impacted the body in such a negative way that it created an action response in the body. Okay. So the first thing that we want to do when we feel ourselves starting to get upset and starting to get emotional, the first thing that we want to do is close our eyes. And so when we close our eyes, we take ourselves out of the reality that we're in. We're closing our eyes, and the only place that we can be in that place of with our eyes closed is the quantum field, right? So where are we bringing ourselves when we close our eyes? We're bringing ourselves within. And that's where we're accessing our universe, which is the quantum field. Everything is within us. So we want to close our eyes and bring ourselves within. The next thing we want to do is we want to drop our consciousness, right? Whether we have to engage in breathing and just in your nose, out your nose, in your nose, out your nose, breathing and finding that rhythm, and then being very aware, bringing the consciousness down into the heart center, right, through the breathing technique. Sometimes we can just do it automatically, but sometimes we're very stressed and we need a process to get us there. So breathing often helps, or a visualization that your consciousness is like a child and you're taking it by the hand and you're walking it down through your face, through your jaw, down through your throat, and right down into your heart center, okay? Getting into your heart center with your eyes closed is very critical, because when we do that, we're coming back into that heart-centered I am space within us, where we're no longer engaged in that emotional state that was triggered by the outer reality. And so when we do that, it automatically gives us this place to come into that can feel very warm and very comforting. Now, the next part of the process requires us to sit in a state of knowing that says, what I am afraid of, what I am angry about, what I'm feeling frustrated over has not truly directly impacted me in any way, shape, or form. And so if it hasn't impacted me in a physical way, I don't want to call it in any further. So I'm going to leave it right here. I'm also going to recognize that the emotions that I'm feeling might not solely be my own emotions, and I may have accidentally tuned in and outsourced my emotional body to those that are being impacted in that scenario, or those that are bringing forward that scenario that triggered me. And now I'm sourcing into, spying on, if you will, which is empathing, because when we're empathing, we're spying on somebody else's emotional state of being. Think about that. And so in that state that we're in, when we're charged with emotions, we then have to qualify them and say, are these emotions mine? Am I really feeling afraid of what it is that I'm hearing? Am I feeling frustrated of what I'm hearing? Am I feeling angry? Whatever the emotion is, and qualifying that emotion, okay? Because the fear emotion is always going to be the first one to come up, because it's the one that has been programmed to be reactive and to come forward spontaneously, okay? When we come into the emotion of love, that emotion brings us back into a state of balance within ourselves and will bring us into a place of healing the fear that we just had, healing the anger that we just had, healing the resentment, the frustration, whatever it is. Okay, so it's very, very important that we start to have an awareness of our emotional state of being. Now, obviously, if something is happening directly to you and you are being impacted in some very physical way, right, then you obviously are going to deal with this in a slightly different situation, where you are using the same principles, the same technique that I just told you, only you're going to bring yourself back into center so that you are not in a reactive state anymore, but you're in a responsive state. And now you have control over your reality and how you can create the next moment of that reality. It's only when we lose control of our emotional state of being that we end up in a chaotic reality. Okay, so that's the difference between having a peaceful, calm environment where there is harmony and there is balance, or a chaotic environment where it's never peaceful and it's always feeling topsy-turvy, and it's always emotional. We have to unplug from those emotions, because you have to remember something. We came here to the earth in this physical vessel because the earth held polarity and duality in its field. And we came in to understand what emotions felt like. We also came in to be divine co-creators and say, I wonder if I could take something and build it up to the most magical something ever. Can I start with a nothing and build it up to a magical something? And in likeness, we could say, I could also see if I could take my magical something and destroy it completely and bring it back down into a nothing. And then from that nothing, build back up into a magical something. Now, what we fail to realize is that the earth gives us that ability, right? And that's really what we're here for. We're here to learn how to have a great time as a co-creator within this reality. Because the one thing that we weren't taught when we were born is that this reality is not static. In other words, it's always in motion, because energy is always in motion. So it's always in flow. And if it's always in flow, it's always waiting for us to give it our next direction. In other words, where do we want it to go next? What do we want that reality to look like next? Okay. And this is the area that we forget ourselves in. And so when something happens in our reality, we immediately tune into the ego mind, which is very reactive, and we can never create anything beautiful when we're in reaction, because that is a hyper mode. Okay, our hyper nervous system is engaged, and then we're in reaction. We're waiting for the next attack. And so we're on guard constantly. Whereas if we're in response mode, we can kind of lay back, we can assess our situation, we can look and see what it is that we want to engage in next, what we want to bring in next, how we want to build our next moment. Okay, so this is really how we work with our emotional state of being, okay? Which is how I live in my reality. Now, when I find myself frazzled, which is not often, but if I find myself in a frazzled state, the first thing that I do is I close my eyes, and then I go within and I say, is that real? Is that real? Is what I'm thinking real? Does that have the potential to become my reality? Listen to me carefully here. Does that have the potential to become my reality? No, not unless I call it in. If I focus on it, remember, law of attraction, where we focus our intention, attention, is where our energy goes. And if we're focusing on something negative, we're certainly going to attract it to us. But if we are smarter and we know how energy works, then we can take our attention, intention away from that negative thing that we don't want and put it into something positive. Okay, this is how we work with our emotions. When you get the hang of this and you start to understand how emotions work, because it's the first thing that engages when something happens, we go right into emotions. Okay. When you understand how they work, we never have to fall down the emotional rabbit hole ever again. We never have to spiral out of control ever again. Okay. We incarnated here on the earth to experience creativity. That's what we're here for. We're here to experience creativity. So when we're overthinking something or we're over emotional about something, we're stopping ourselves from our creative flow. That is the foremost important thing for us to understand. If we're not feeling like we're connecting in, if we're not feeling like we're moving forward, it's because we're stopping ourselves from doing that. We're placing our attention, intention in the wrong place. We're allowing our emotional body to govern us instead of us governing our emotional body, right? You guys hear me talk about divine neutrality all the time. Well, divine neutrality is a state of being. And when we can look at something and be an observer to it without an emotion, either way, as good or bad, right or wrong, right? There's no emotion to it. There's no judgment of it. We just see it. It just is. That's divine neutrality. We don't need to change it. We don't need to fix it. We don't need to do anything with it, right? That's divine neutrality. And that is very hard to hold for long periods of time. So we practice a little bit at a time, okay? Until we start to really understand that that's how we heal judgment. And the more we use divine neutrality to get into that space, the more we start to let go of the judgment that we hold, firstly, of ourselves, because we're very good at judging ourselves. And that judgment trickles out to everything and everyone else around us. Okay. So if we can practice divine neutrality, in other words, not having to have an outcome that we desire and just letting it be what it is, then we can also practice holding space for another instead of having to have something our way in someone else's circumstance. And we hear this all the time when somebody is asking for prayers for a loved one. Okay. And so I will say, I'm holding space in the highest realms for the highest outcome. Why do I do that? Because I am not attached to the outcome, because I know that that soul that's going through whatever it's going through has an outcome that's already planned for its highest experience. And it's not up to me to pray to keep them here, pray to heal them, pray to cross them faster, whatever the case may be. But I will hold the space that's needed so that they can do what they need to do in order to have the experience that's in their highest, best state of being. Okay. And that's what we mean when we say holding space. So when we start to play with our emotional body and we take our need for things to be a certain way out, and we see how we're creating emotions, then we can kick it up a notch, and we can also challenge ourselves with going into divine neutrality when something is being asked for some kind of interaction, and say, I'm just going to hold space in the highest realms, and I'm going to do that from my heart center. And I'm going to offer that up in the highest way possible, knowing that I'm holding space, I'm holding energy, I'm holding the highest realms for that person, for that situation, for whatever it is, knowing that they've already planned what it is that they're needing to experience. I'm just going to be that space, that buffer, that heart-centered energy that's going to hold them and allow them to do what they need to do without me interfering in their process. And that's very hard for most of us to do, right? We want to get emotionally engaged. We want to get emotionally in charged. But that's not how we need to work this. We need to come from that place of letting go, that divine neutrality, so that we can continue to amplify our state of being. And in that amplifying our state, we're connecting in at a deeper level with all things, right? And perhaps in the next video, I'm going to talk about connecting in with your guides and give a little bit on that, because many of you are perceiving that you don't have a connection, or that you're not on your ascension path because you're not feeling anything, or you're not intuiting anything, or you're not sensing anything, and you don't have guides around you and all of this stuff, right? Which is absolutely not true. So maybe we'll continue the talk for the next video, as we're talking about our emotional body and how we can work with it to enhance our state of being. This way you can use this technique on a daily basis and start practicing it, which will get you even more open, clear, and connected to those highest states of consciousness within you, that will help to amplify your experience in being you. Okay. So hopefully you found something here that was a takeaway for you that is going to help you in your process. Drop me a note below. I would love to hear from you, to continue this next time. I think that's all I had for today. So I wish you a wonderful, whatever it is that you're doing. Know that I love you so, so very much. Thank you so much for your love and support, for subscribing to the channel. Hopefully you hit the bell notification so that you are notified when I have new videos coming out. Just know that I deeply, deeply appreciate you and love you so, so very much. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye.